What's up, you guys? Welcome to Music Business 101. It's 5 p.m. on July 30th, and this is Music Business 101, a Q&A. My name is Sean Healy. For those of you who have never seen these before or joined us, my guest in a few minutes is going to be Jorge Brea. He owns SYMPHONIC Distribution, which is a distribution service for artists. So he'll be joining us in a few minutes, but we want to wait till everyone gets here, and we're going to talk about so many things going on with our business, talking about the venues. We're going to talk about protocols, talk about booking. If you guys got questions about booking and whatnot, we're going to do all that stuff. So we're going to bring in Jorge in a few minutes, but I want to let you guys know what's going on. So we started doing this a year ago. Our first one was like the last Friday in July of 2020, and that was a music business Q&A where we just talked about the state of the live music business as it was a year ago in 2020. And so every month before I bring in the guests, I talk about the state of the live music scene as we can see it from our end. So what I want to let you guys know first and foremost is hope everyone's healthy. The shit's getting weird again. I can't stress it enough, but I'm not going to preach. Get the vaccine to protect yourself, but protect others as well. What we are seeing as far as the shows go is these venues are starting to say, hey, you got to show proof of vaccine in order to go to the concert. That's certainly their right, and it's a safe way, but the artists need to understand that in some of these venues, that's going to be policy. So if you're a headliner and you're showing up to the club and you don't have a proof of vaccine, you may not be able to perform that night, and everyone's going to have to get refunded, and that's going to look bad on you. So I'm not preaching, but I'm telling you guys what's going on. These concert venues indoors are about to say vaccine-only customers or don't come. Not even negative test results, okay? There'll be some that'll do that, but a lot of the venues that we're working with, and every day the policies are changing all around the country, proof of vaccine to get in. So that's going to be a real issue, not just for the fans, but for the headliners, for you artists out there that touring is a big part of your industry. You got to get that vax, man, or you're going to show up to the club and they will not let you in and you will not pick up that bag. That is a fact, okay? So get your shots, guys. This shit is real, and all the venues and all the bars, and now even in Los Angeles, some of the restaurants are saying vaccinated only. Nobody wants to get shut down again, okay? You guys know the entertainment industry was crushed. The concert industry was decimated. People lost jobs, lost their venues, lost their careers. So no one wants to be shut down again. Get the shots so you can go to the show and enjoy it safely. And that's all I'm going to talk about that. Now, what's coming up with us? Well, we got some big shows. If you're in Sacramento, we got Rakim August 12th at Harlow's. If you're in Oakland, August 13th, Rakim at New Parish, taking it back. August 14th, Jay Stone at the Regent. I believe we're doing a Nipsey Hussle birthday party celebration for
Nipsey's birthday is the next day.
We're doing a thing with Jay Stone at the Regent in Los Angeles on August 14th and celebrating Nipsey's birthday, which is on the 15th. August 21st in Los Angeles, Lost Dog Street Band. If you guys haven't heard of Lost Dog Street Band, check them out. They're new country, but it's dope. And they'll be at Don Quixote, which is a new venue downtown. We've got Chris Webby shows coming up. We've got Lloyd Banks shows coming up. We've got Wax shows coming up. We've got Riff Raff shows coming up. What am I missing here? I got Buster helping me out here. What else are we missing?
Let's see. We got Lost Dog. We got Echo shows.
Echo. We're doing
22Gs.
22Gs. Echo.
Kalen Raps, Lloyd Banks.
Young Blue, Kalen Raps. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff, okay? So everyone asks me, how do we book with you guys? The first thing is the link is in the bio to sign up for the available gigs email, which we send out on Mondays, okay? In that email, We list all the shows that we're booking and how you can get on them. Now, give us a chance, though, guys, because we are slammed and everyone wants to get booked. But to make the process simpler, if you see a show in the available gigs link in our bio that you fit and that's in your city, send an email, and in the subject of the email, put Rakim Sacramento opener, and then put your music in the bio and send it to us. Now, like I said, we are backlogged, okay? But once you're in our system and you handle your business, you're good. So we know you're good, and the process will be easier. But for those of you who haven't booked with us or don't understand how it works, just give it time, be patient, but we'll get through everything. And those of you who are in our system, you already know how it works. And starting on Monday of next week, we're opening our new offices. We've been working, remotely for the last year or so, but on Monday we're moving into our new offices in North Hollywood, and the phones will be ringing on Tuesday, so you guys will actually be able to call us and we'll pick up the phone, I promise. So we're moving into some dope offices on Monday. So I'm going to bring Jorge in because I see him right now. He's coming in right now. I'll take questions at the end, and let's try to get him in. All right, so I'm trying to bring him in, Buster. There we go. Jorge.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, nice to meet you, bud.
Likewise. Hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yeah, I can.
Awesome.
Good. This worked out good. Sometimes a couple guys have had problems getting their live on and using different things, but you're tech savvy, as we know. So welcome, man, and happy Friday.
Likewise. Thank you for being on. Thank you for the nice words at the beginning about being vaccinated and being safe out there, man. I feel you. We have a representative of the company that's a part of NEVA, the stage focused advocacy group, and we've got friends that are certainly business owners that are venue owners as well being affected. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Yes, please go get vaccinated. There's really no reason not to.
I mean, it's true, and the reality is nobody wants to be shut down again. So the businesses are taking it upon themselves. I know for our company, we all got vaxxed right away, but we are requiring anyone else who works for us to be vaccinated, including interns,
right,
and including our production managers that run the shows at night. So that's just part of the gig. If you want to, be a part of our company, we're enforcing it.
That's awesome, man. That's good to hear. We take a very sort of approach of ensuring that if you're not vaccinated, at least you're being safe and at home and not affecting others. But yeah, it's a tricky time, and hopefully there's some light. I thought there would be, but you know how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Buster and I were just talking. So I've been doing this. This is the 13th one. We started this a year ago tonight, and the first one was about the state of the live music industry in July of 2020,
right,
when there was nothing going on, right? So it was a lot of predictions, and this is even pre-vaccine because there wasn't even a vaccine last summer, that we knew was going to be for us. So every month changes and the vibe changes, and Buster and I were just saying, the last one we did was in June of this Q&A, and it was right after LA opened. It was June 17th, LA opened June 15th. So we were just all smiles and everything's back and we're back and it's all back. And now 6 weeks later, we're like, oh God, don't let them shut down anything,
Well,
so,
and that's for sure.
Yeah, so we have a ton of tours out there. But I want to get into you and your journey and Symphonic. And, I want we often get bands that'll come in here. This will be shown a bunch of other times too. So, it's not, we put it on our YouTube and it'll be on our Spotify. So this will have life after this, where more listeners and viewers will check it out.
Awesome.
So now you're based in Florida, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm in Tampa, Florida, which isn't always known as a major music market. Although in the '90s we were a huge sort of like death metal, staple of the United States. But very happy to be based in Tampa. The scene here is growing. We've got some really great talent. And we've got individuals and offices as well up in Nashville, throughout the U.S., Miami, and internationally as well, like Brazil, Africa, and other places now as well.
So home base is Tampa for the company, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's where we were founded.
Okay.
Moved here when I was 7 years old back in '92 from the Dominican Republic along with my family, and basically was raised here. I just started making music and DJing, and I thought, well, let's just open up a business, and we've stayed here and been able to grow here, which is great.
That's great. So, you, from what I read, you were producing and you were DJing, and was this like electro type music, or what type of music was it when you were doing that before you got into the company?
Yeah, so I was doing electronic music or a subgenre of it that they call like breakbeats. But then I did other genres and styles like house music, minimal, deep house, and things like that. But traditionally started producing electronic music for the most part. Yeah.
Awesome. And so I read that you cut a bunch of like what 45s and LPs and stuff.
Yeah. So, I was actually about 16 years old and I would go to the record store of my brother and I would pick out records for him. I wasn't cool enough to play them yet or learn how to DJ or anything, but I would pick out records, and then I saw one on the wall that said that they were doing like a remix contest for like a small, like sort of Florida label. And I went ahead and I remixed. I didn't provide just one remix, but I provided like 8 versions or 8 different remixes because I really wanted to win it because the award was that you got a vinyl released. So that was always a big goal. So when I submitted that, I won the remix contest, and that was like my first record release. And then that sort of helped me out to network with other record labels and artists in Florida. And then they would go ahead and actually then release my music on vinyl and so forth.
Awesome. How old were you again when that started?
So I was 16 when I started producing, like officially. So yeah, it's a long time ago now.
Yeah.
I'm 30. I think I'm 37. I kind of can't even remember at this point nowadays. After 30, who keeps track, right?
That's for sure, man. I stopped counting years ago. So who were some of your musical influences that got, as a 16-year-old producing electro, and winning contests? Like, who were your major musical influences?
So it's interesting. There's been a lot more like 90s nostalgia nowadays going on. So I'm definitely a product of the 90s for the most part. So Nine Inch Nails, I was very big into like alternative and industrial and hard rock really in the 90s. Just that was the climate of the music industry. So very much like Trent Reznor to me is a massive influence. But then for me, a lot of electronic producers I'm really a fan of as well. Hybrid, Sasha, and some of the newer ones today like Molograph and things like that. So I kind of continue to be influenced in general, but I've loved like all music. I collect a lot of vinyl, and it's pretty much every style you can think of, even comedy. I mean, I'm just a fan of anything that is media and content, so to speak. So
Awesome, man. Well, I have a great T-shirt that we make that I'm going to send you. It's a vinyl junkie T-shirt.
oh
And I'm gonna send it to you after this.
yeah.
So okay, so you win the contest and you're producing stuff for others now. How, because to come up with distribution in 2006 is fairly innovative, because there were a few things I remember being around, but not a ton. So how do you go from being a DJ and a producer to, I want to get into the business and get music out there?
Sure. So, right after high school, around 2002 or so, obviously I went to college and I started to really realize that wasn't really for me. And for me, I always wanted to do something in the world of music, but I wasn't really a fan of going and doing shows all of the time, because for me personally, just the excess of drinking and all of that. I'm a young guy. I've never been around it. It was just something that was very difficult for me to be around. And I didn't have any issues or anything per se, but it seemed like a really tough life that personally I couldn't do. And I admire everybody that does it, because, those are real superstars to be able to do that night in and night out. But I really wanted effectively a day job. I really wanted that whole like 9 to 6 mindset, which is really odd for people to think and say, but that was just kind of how I was wired. And so I wanted to release a record label and just basically launch that. At the time, though, like early 2000s, there wasn't any money that I had, obviously, to press vinyl and CD. So I thought, I'll just start releasing my music digitally. iTunes had come out, and there was some talk about online e-commerce and MP3.
Were you a big Napster guy?
I was definitely a big Napster guy. I was young and in high school, so those were awesome days. Just getting all.
Were you putting your music out on Napster, like sharing it?
I was mostly a fan of music, but I wasn't looking so much for mainstream stuff. I was looking a lot for like DJ mixes and stuff that, like an ultra DJ set or something like that, that I couldn't find anywhere else because there wasn't any streaming or YouTube at the so that was what I always was used to searching for and so
So
forth.
so you start so you start Symphonic with no money. You had no funding, no backing. So how does it, like, for some people in here, they may not understand what a distribution label is. So take us from the very like beginning, like how, your first the first bandwidth you got or website or whatever. Take us through the beginning of it.
So, after releasing music digitally, like on my own and like promoting it on MySpace at the time, I hooked up with a site called Beatport, which is still very much out right now and really popular for electronic music. And I put my music out on there, and in like a weekend, I made like $100 a day, like $300 in a weekend, and it was like, holy shit, like this is something that could be really interesting.
How much were they paying per download or stream at that moment?
So their downloads are about $1.99, so that was almost like 99 cents because they kept a percentage of that. So pretty interesting pricing and so forth.
Right.
So put my music out there, did well, and I thought, oh man, this is something. I'm like making music every day. That's never happened before. I'm sorry, making money every day. That's never happened before. And then I started immediately just contacting all of the artists and labels that put me on the physical days, helping them kind of adapt digital. And then I really thought I was onto something there. I explored a lot of the market and the sort of digital distribution market at that time, and there really wasn't that much. There was obviously the Orchard, IOTA, Iris, Naxos, like a classical music distributor at the time.
Was TuneCore around then?
TuneCore still wasn't quite around there. They kind of launched around the same time we did, actually. Um, so, I hooked up with one of those digital distributors because I wanted to expand beyond Beatport. So I hooked up as like a client with my own label. And the experience that I got wasn't really what I was expecting. It wasn't very educational. It wasn't very supportive. There wasn't much out there to really teach at the time anyways, but it just wasn't as inviting. So I thought, like any natural sort of entrepreneur, well, I feel like I can do this better. And I sought out to create a business that would really help create digital record labels, help expand physical to digital, and effectively help educate and help develop. And that's really the catalyst of Symphonic. So at the time, you're absolutely correct. It was absolutely no money. Myself and a few friends at the time that were helping me out, we were literally, receiving downloads via our email, via a spreadsheet, and just manually putting releases together and transforming all of those releases into every specification that a DSP, a digital service provider, was looking for at that time. And essentially, at the very, very core of what a distribution company does, that is what it is. We take your music in one format and in one input, and then we encode it and we create different metadata standards for all these different digital service providers out there to ingest. But we were doing that by hand without technology at the time. So that was the very, very, very beginnings of stuff. We even would send hard drives back and forth to DSPs for them to ingest content. It was that old school back then.
And so what were you, and you were putting other people's music out, like through them, through their channels, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it was, once we launched, we focused a lot around Beatport, and then we got the Apple deal. So we had those two as our primary big distribution outlets. And so
it sounds like it was moving so fast. What were the deals like that you were making with the artists? Things were moving quick.
So back then, I mean, margins were much greater than today. I mean, it was not uncommon to do 50-50 deals or 60-40, 70-30 back then. That was very standard because it was so difficult to get music out there to the masses at that time.
So were there in the infancy of it when you're explaining this? Was there anyone notable in the infancy that you're talking about right now that people would remember or know now?
I mean, we distributed some of deadmau5's first ever releases. So in the electronic music genre primarily, we had a huge focus very specifically on the electronic side, just because those were my contacts. And really, I think I credit a lot of the growth and the success of digital to electronic music, because all you really need is a few computers and gear, and you can make a song. It was just much easier to release music. And this coming from somebody that really enjoyed, you know, hard rock and bands and just all of that. But electronic music was super easy to just kind of produce and
Wow. And
distribute.
so now, so so you're able to get music out there, and people are probably coming to you like, hey, dude, can you get my stuff out there? Like, you know, so you're just handshake 50-50s, like, let's get it rolling. At what point do you realize this is going to be a very big thing and you've got to just focus all of your attention on the business and move to this office and get this equipment or whatnot?
It was literally within a quarter of launching, I realized that this could be something big and this could be my full-time job. And that was my primary goal first, was to just work to make it a full-time job. You know, I wasn't so much of trying to, you know, hire or create a multi-million-dollar company. I just wanted to lead corporate America really at the time. So really a few months after launching, I started to realize this is big because it was starting to snowball day to day.
Yeah. That's incredible. So you guys are 15 years old,
Yep.
sounds like. And so take us through some of the bigger artists. I know you mentioned Deadmau5. Take us through some of the initial big artists and how they found out about you or you found out about them.
Yeah, so, you know, primarily on the electronic side, we distributed pretty much everybody that you can think of. You know, we had David Guetta songs, like I mentioned, Deadmau5. We had all the underground DJs that were doing big stuff. Richie Houghton. I mean, honestly, just a ton. Josh Digby, like folks that I grew up kind of like really loving through the record labels that we were working with. We ended up distributing them. We were there during the growth of dubstep and just like the explosion of electronic music. And then that kind of naturally evolved into Latin music, being like a huge part of what it is that we do. And, you know, I'm Dominican. I was born in the Dominican Republic, so I was really happy to see that sort of that genre was really starting to grow. And even electronic music was starting to gravitate into that style. So that kind of like happened naturally. And at the time, you know, we started to see the shift at that same time from a genre perspective, go from electronic to all genres because downloads were starting to decrease and streaming providers were starting to increase.
What year was that?
That was really the big year for that was about 2015 to 2016 was
Yeah.
when it sort of really pivoted for us, at least at the time. That and then all that, as well as everything happening with YouTube and how to monetize that and so forth as well.
Now, you guys, so how the company obviously has grown into it's worldwide now, and you have offices all over the country. I mean, the world, and we'll get into that in a second. So if I'm a new artist now,
Yeah.
how do I get in touch with you guys, and how do I decide if a distribution deal is good for me?
Right. So one of the things that is different about us is that we're actually pretty selective. We like to do a lot of educational material and we like to develop artists, but we're not trying to be a distrokid or TuneCore. We don't want to just have sort of so much content out there because we want to make sure that whoever we can take in, we can actually help develop and support via marketing, personalized support, you know, a really ingrained type of relationships. Some clients, you know, are very independent, talk to us much, but others can depend on us for education and guidance. So, you know, when you go to our website, symphonic.com, you can apply and we'll listen and we'll review every application. And oftentimes we are taking chances with somebody that's not necessarily huge, but that shows promise. And anybody that we don't accept, that doesn't mean that we'll never accept them, but rather we may not be able to at that moment. And we always do suggest that it's okay to consider DistroKid or TuneCore to sort of be familiarized with how to actually distribute music out there in the world and so forth. So we're trying to be that next step beyond DistroKid and TuneCore, where you're really trying to get up and establish this as a sort of career for an even greater step afterwards.
How many artists would you say currently are signed to Symphonic?
So the interesting thing, back then we were a much more open company, so we got a huge legacy sort of like client base as well. We've got about 30,000 accounts, and those accounts are record labels, artists directly, managers that manage different artists as well. And our catalog's about 2 million songs, so it's quite quite large in that regard. But you know, on a monthly basis, we're signing up a good 500 to 1,000 accounts. So while that seems like a large amount, it's relatively small when you consider the amount that like a DistroKid or TuneCore CD Baby are doing, which are much more open type systems.
And so for some of you guys who don't understand what the difference is between a major record deal like Def Jam or Interscope or whatever versus a distribution deal with Symphonic or Caroline, or I don't know if United Masters is still doing it, but can you explain to us what is the difference between a distribution deal and a traditional major record label deal?
Sure. So first, with a major record label deal, usually your intellectual rights are being owned by the record label. They're, you know, usually investing a heavy sum amount of money in exchange for those rights. And that could be in perpetuity, it could be for 20, 30 years, whatever ends up being the deal that is being agreed to at that point. Whereas an independent like us, we're more sort of licensing those rights, and the revenue share is substantially different. In a major, the revenue share may literally be something upwards of 90-10 in the major labels' favor, although that is getting a little bit better from what I've heard and seen. And on the independent side, it's more like 90-10 in the artist's or client's favor. So it's certainly much more fruitful on the independent side from a royalty perspective, because you get to own and control your rights, and certainly make more royalties. However, major record labels may be much more selective than we are and invest a significant amount more funds to be able to help the project get going. But it just depends on really where you're at in your career and what you want to do. And nowadays, major record labels really aren't even just signing like the person that's singing at the coffee shop. They want to see that you've created a following and everything.
Yeah, 100%. So what I was going to reiterate to that fact, I managed an artist for a couple years, and we went down the major label road and got offers, and also went down the distribution road and got offers, and did that whole thing. So you guys understand what Jorge's saying is, if you sign to Interscope Records, they're going to own your tape. Okay, the album you just made, if you sign to Interscope, they're going to give you a good amount of money, but they're going to own that music for a long time. And then after everything's paid back, whatever crumbles or left, you're going to get the small part of the revenue. Okay. So in theory, it sounds terrible and it sounds like a bad bank loan. For some artists, it works.
Right.
Some, it doesn't. It's just part of it. The distribution way that Jorge's talking about is a safer bet. You're going to own your music forever. No one's taking it away from you. You're going to own it. You're going to get a better split on the royalties, and they're going to help get your music out there. So now what do you do about advances? Are there such things as advances at Symphonic?
Yeah, certainly. We as a company, we're pretty selective in that. I mean, I say selectivity a lot because we're naturally very careful about anything that we do in the company in terms of who we align ourselves with, in terms of the deals that we do. You know, we want to be fiscally responsible, you know, businesses, people. We like to, whenever there's any sort of earnings that are associated that can be used for recoupment, I'm very transparent about that, just because it can be very difficult to just do an advance for a new product, especially for a new product, for a new artist, where there's a lot of other work and you know, energy that needs to be taken. But that's certainly there. We don't really impose any sort of interest on those advances. It's very much, here's a dollar amount, that at whatever we end up agreeing.
And so you guys know advances they're going to give you the money up front, but you're going to pay it back on your earnings, on your royalties, and that gets paid back first, doesn't it?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
So before you get your split, if you let's say got a $50,000 advance from a distribution label, they're going to take the first $50,000 back in your royalties before the split. Correct. So that's what an advance is. They're all recoupable in major labels or distribution labels.
Correct. Yeah, we also do recoupable marketing budgets as well, which are more of like an agreed upon sort of amount that can be used throughout like the life of the deal, and are also kind of subject to some scrutiny, but work similarly to advances in that regard.
Right. So do you at Symphonic have a PR and marketing teams, and are those built into the normal deal, or are those add-ons for, hey, you know, we'll get your music out there, but if you want publicity or you want billboards or marketing or radio, it's going to cost X amount, and that'll be recoupable as well?
Yeah, sure. So at the very core of what we do, we're talking about obviously delivering music to digital service providers, but also marketing to those digital service providers. So Spotify, Apple, Pandora, etc. We're on calls with them, we're in meetings, we're filling out sort of like grids that we're given to try to get the products playlisted or featured across various promotions. And that is built into our fee. We don't charge for that. For more expanded marketing, such as, you know, a marketing plan or PR services, social media management, there are fees established, but those aren't mandatory. Those are available a la carte. And for even further sort of more expanded marketing in terms of billboards and radio and things like that, that's usually worked out after some strategy and a plan is created, budget either partly by us as well as partly from the client that we're working with. So that's all very much capable, but we always start at a very sort of standard baseline, and then certainly start to see a record, you know, taking off, and we'll even throw some gas on that fire naturally because we feel confident in any sort of return on investment in that regard.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if let's say you sign an artist, it's your most basic deal. I don't know what your deals are, but let's just say it's 80-20. Here's the basic deal. You get 80%. The artist gets 80%. Symphonic gets 20%. And you just feed it to the stores, and something starts to take off. You're going to hit that artist and say, hey, I think if we jack up the PR on this, or I can get this playlisted, but it's going to cost you, you know, a couple $1,000 off the royalties off the top. Are you down with that? Are those conversations that happen?
Yeah, and I mean, typically, certainly on a playlist side, we'll never charge. We don't believe in charging anybody for that. But when it comes to promoting it on radio or even music video style things that can help sort of like elevate the record, we'll look into things like that. We're very open-minded when it comes to a good idea, as long as there's traction that's already being made in that regard.
So, and you brought up a good point. So playlists. So, you know, now with streaming and Spotify and Apple, everyone wants to be on a playlist. You know,
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be on it. So how do artists get on playlists that let's just say that they don't have a distribution label, they don't have anything? Is it even possible to get on one, on a real one?
Certainly there is. I mean, some of it requires an investment, and when I mean an investment, it's not so much paying a curator to playlist you, but rather working on technology platforms that have the capability of connecting you to curators. So things like Playlist Push or Submit Hub are options. They're not necessarily always the preferred option for many artists. That's their prerogative. But what's also cool is that if you're just a DIY or on a DIY platform outside of Symphonic, you know, Spotify for Artists has a ability for you to pitch, you know, through their platform to where you don't have to pay anything, and at least it puts it up for consideration. That's always a good start if you're really just starting out. Once things start to get playlisted via them or even through third parties by using platforms like Submit Hub or Playlist Push, that starts to get the attention of the curators of Spotify once they start to see that your material is being added to various different platforms. But we're very vocal about playlists, and I'll say a few things like, number one, we don't consider that the marketing plan. That's certainly an element of the music industry, because being on a playlist, even New Music Friday US, doesn't necessarily guarantee you a tremendous amount of revenue. And even the DSPs themselves, you know, they want to see that you're doing something beyond just their platform or playlist. They want to see that you're trying to engage on social media and trying to do something unique, doing collaborations. All of that really ends up helping the shots and the chance for getting on a playlist.
So does payola go on in the playlist world for the real ones?
I've definitely seen a lot of websites online where they're selling a certain amount of streams for a dollar exchange. So that is out there, but usually, and very much so now, that is being caught very, very fast by the Spotifys of the world. And all that really does is just absolutely kill the chances for you being marketed in the future by us. And it can even result in your music being totally taken off. So
yeah, so I'm sure a lot of you guys see in your Instagram ads,
yeah.
I can get you on this playlist. Here's top 10, whatever. So don't do that. That's what he's basically saying. Don't buy playlist opportunities. They're not necessarily real, and it could hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add a quick note on that. I mean, it's definitely frustrating for artists to sort of even hear that there isn't necessarily a solution that's so transactional. But what I tell everybody is you have to be humble and you have to be consistent at this process. And it is a process. Releasing music and getting it out there, it's not going to always happen right away. But you're still creating a catalog, and that is going to be worth something, especially if just one of your songs ends up reaching, incredible heights in that regard.
Totally. And I tell bands this all the time. Great music, you guys, will find its way. It just is. It's one of these things. It's one of the art forms that great, unique music will always find an audience. Someone's going to play it for someone. Someone's going to share it. It's going to take off. So if you're unique and your music's good, it will find its way.
Absolutely.
To the right places, and to the right people.
Yep.
So, when did you expand to other countries? And you have staff and offices in those other countries currently?
Yes, correct. I mean, we've got folks in the Dominican Republic, we've got folks in Colombia, a couple in Mexico, South Africa, Nigeria, and Brazil. And all of that has sort of happened over time. We're, as an exclusive news, we're also about to expand a little bit into Russia as well.
Wow.
Future also. But it really started off with the Dominican Republic, where I was born and effectively partly raised, just because that was very close to the proximity of Puerto Rico. And the reggaeton scene there obviously was definitely growing a lot. And that was what helped expand the Latin profile really over the past few years. So, that was kind of our first expansion. And then Colombia came soon after, where Colombia serves an interesting role for us because not only territory expansion, but also helping to support a lot of what we're doing in the U.S. because Colombia has just a tremendous amount of awesome, educated, individuals that, can do a lot of great things for even outside of Colombia, territories as well.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but because many of the people that are going to watch this don't know this, but Spotify and Apple, they're not available in those countries, correct?
So they are now much more available in Latin America. So what's interesting, most of the developed territories of the world, the platforms are on there. But the thing is, they may not be the number one platform in those territories. Some of the territories have like China specifically has really Tencent, NetEase, and Alibaba as like big ones. Spotify and everybody else isn't even really anything out there. They just recently expanded in Russia, for example. Spotify did. But out there, really, there's another platform called Yandex and so forth. So I would say across Latin America, Spotify and Apple are certainly there. But what's really popular in some of those territories is certainly YouTube, just because of the accessibility and then the music video element as well.
So with the expansion into all these countries, you find yourself having to travel a bunch to check up on things?
So we used to, back in normal days.
Yeah.
More frequently to Colombia. But we've launched, Brazil, Mexico, and Africa without us having to get on a plane. And that's because we really are careful about who it is that we work with in these countries. We want to make sure that somebody is as close as possible to the DNA of the company, someone that I can personally really relate with, and also someone that really has a certain amount of contacts that we would never be able to get on our own. So we usually start very small, with a small group of people, maybe like one person or, up to 3 to 5 individuals as well to really build something strong. So like in Brazil, for example, it may be a small team of 4, for example, but we're growing tremendously fast in that region and taking market share from a lot of our competitors. And the same thing we're starting to realize in Africa as well, with just a handful of folks as well. The more that we see growth, the more then we are able to invest in those regions.
Awesome. Now, how does it work for producers? Because you have a producers portal. So can you explain to everyone how it works for producers that are signed to Symphonic?
Sure. So, being that production is very big for me, something I'm still very passionate about. We launched a brand called Symphonic for Production, really aimed at talking to the production world. So if you want to just make sounds and sample packs, you can go ahead and get those distributed by us to sounds.com, the Native Instruments platform. And then we'll also sell it directly on a retail brand that we have as well. And there are definitely plans to expand that to other sort of like sample pack libraries as well. We're interested in doing our own production tools, certainly our own original kind of like production-based sounds as well. So we're open to working with producers and effectively kind of like releasing records, but in the format of samples, so to speak. So that's definitely.
Are the producer deals similar to the artist deals, or are the splits and the revenues different?
Yeah, no, it's very similar to the distribution side. In that case, it's usually an 80-20 sort of deal, largely because the distribution of sample packs isn't as automatic and standardized as it is to distribute music at this point.
And what are the lengths of the deal? What are the years or the term lengths? I know they vary on everything from producers and artists, but what's a basic standard length of time in a deal for an artist with you?
Yeah, so it's usually 2 years. Really the relationship. However, when they're buying through our website isn't tied down to us. We're saying we're an option, but you certainly could still work with a distrokid and TuneCore. However, there are benefits to being able to put the entire catalog in one place for us, because not only are we marketing your new material, we're also trying to market your entire catalog at the same point as well through different styles of pitches or campaigns, and really being able to leverage the catalog from a third-party brands and curator perspective.
But the project deal is exclusive, but the catalog can be other places, but you prefer it to be all with you if possible.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't. It's a hell of a lot easier to be able to market when we have an entire story to tell over the artist. And also, like, the DSPs often come to us whenever they see that we've released a song by like a major Latin artist. They're asking, well, what else do you have in the catalog? And that's the story that usually is asked of. And that's why it's beneficial to really put your catalog in one place to be able to help optimize it.
Who was the first? I know you mentioned Deadmau5, but maybe it was Deadmau5. Who was the first artist that the first major artist that you signed that we would know?
So definitely Deadmau5 was the very, very first bigger one. We had a licensing deal for a Justin Timberlake feature, so that was pretty cool. And then in the Latin world, we've got some of Daddy Yankee's original material that no one else has. We were able to distribute Ozuna before he really blew up, some Bad Bunny features and things like that. So all these artists that are now pretty massive, we've got some of their catalog that still remains through their independent relationships that they started out with.
And so those deals, they renew them with you?
So usually those material, like those songs that they've released under those label brands, don't really go along with the major deals that they're signing. So that's a benefit, because we're able to still represent some of this repertoire, and obviously it starts to have an uplift as the artist becomes popular too.
Got it. So that's good. So the older stuff will still have life, and you'll still generate from it, and the artist will still generate a fair amount from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of a cool dynamic. I mean, and that's pretty rare back then. It's becoming more common now, where there is a world where you can, as an artist, only have certain go-forward recordings be part of a major, and some of your past catalogs sort of effectively remain independent. That is very much a structure that I've seen, particularly on the Latin side of things.
Did you guys, or maybe you do, I don't know, but do you ever do physical product?
Yeah, so actually we do have physical distribution. Again, highly, highly selective. However, we're about to expand that program with a company called Crates, or Q Rates. And that will make it to where effectively anyone could almost get a vinyl release pressed if they've sort of crowdfunded enough through that platform. So that's going to be a really cool platform that we'll be partnered up with. But we do, physical product. We've got Schooly D that we've done some material with. We've got the Wild Pitch catalog on physical form that we're doing some things with, and that's like Gangstar and a bunch of old school releases as well. So, we've got some really cool stuff coming there, and that's certainly an option there for when we've got more like established catalogs that happen to have some physical still a part of their ecosystem.
Do you listen to everything that you guys sign, at least for a few seconds?
So I'm checking out our playlists often, and on a week-to-week basis, our corporate marketing team across all of our locations are featuring the material in sort of like a New Music Friday Instagram story and post. So that gives me a really good inclination over what we're doing and what we're featuring. And it's been awesome to see how that's shifted over the years and how it was very electronic heavy all the way to now, pop and singer-songwriter and all these different genres and styles. So that's probably the best chance that I have to listen to it, aside of the playlist that we run as well. Our team, whenever they're approving releases, we actually have fingerprinting platforms that scan every audio to ensure that all the samples are legitimate, but they are constantly listening to the music just to ensure that there's sort of like a QA check as well.
Now, your business, I read, grew 50% in the last year.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So how did you keep up with the growth, and how did you staff and things of that nature?
Yeah. So, I think the entire digital music industry has benefited a lot from the type of concept that it is. So naturally, the industry is growing at a rate of about 20 to 25% annually. So when we say 50%, we're including that natural organic industry growth. But we're adding a good 20, 25%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but is very much a very difficult amount of work to do. And naturally, like I'll tell you, we outreach a lot. We're trying to talk to as many different prospects that we feel we can work with. Our team just has a tremendous amount of experience and contacts, and they work really hard at just kind of having new conversations and setting up releases in the future. And just naturally, the fact that most people have been needing music as an outlet, really tough times has really also helped the industry growth as well. And that's kind of stayed as things have opened up as well. As it's become much more ingrained now in the day-to-day of people's lives.
Are there staff members that handle certain genres at Symphonic? Like, is there a hip-hop guy and a dance guy?
Yes, actually. We've got, we segmented mostly from a mindset of electronic, Latin, hip-hop, and then pop, and then effectively everything else after that. So we do have some specialists in that regard, although our team is pretty genre agnostic as a whole. We've got just absolute music, nerds, as I like to call it, all the way from the most executive level down to, the coordinator level. They're just super knowledgeable, and that's a really big important part of what we do as well, is ensure that we're well versed in material and in what's happening in the day-to-day out there.
When was the last time you saw a band or an act live and said, I want to sign them?
So, well, first off, in Florida, we have a very different way of doing the pandemic, as the world has all seen. So first, I've seen bands pretty recently. I saw one actually a few weeks ago that I think are pretty interesting as a project, and they're called See You Soon. It's a project by it's a project that consists of many different artists and musicians, but I know one of the songwriters and rappers on there. His name is Drex Carter, and he's the one that told me, come out to this show. We're going to be in Tampa, and I was just pretty blown away by what they were doing. So that's probably the most recent one that I see. But naturally, anytime that I'm watching live music, I always have that element where it's like, man, I'd love to be able to work with that artist. I mean, that's the romantic nature of the aspect of things, Do
you still maintain like personal relationships with some of your acts?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got clients that we've signed from day one that I talk to pretty regularly. Some folks, are lucky enough to hound me on my cell phone pretty frequently. So yeah, we have generally very personal relationships, not just myself, but across the team as well, because that is one of the big differences between us and some of the other companies, certainly the majors that are out there.
Awesome. Um, I have a few questions that we got, so I want to run through them first. At what point would you say an artist should start looking for a distribution label? Like,
Sure.
at what part of their career, like when they have, I mean, now a lot of this stuff's about followers, but at what point should an artist say, you know what, I need a company to get my music out there?
Sure. So I think if you're first starting out making music, working with the TuneCore DistroKids, CD Babies of the world, I think is always a great first step. If you've never released something, when you start to get traction, let's say, 100,000 monthly listeners, and I know that sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it really isn't a lot in a way because of the streaming rates and so forth. But when you started to get to that point and you've started to have songs that are getting 20,000, plays consistently over and over, I think that is a good point to hook up with a company like us because we're really well positioned to be able to throw some gas on that fire at that point. And what we also tell folks is if you really want to grow numbers, and I tell this, and I'm very vocal about how to do this because I just think a great way, and this is good for the music industry, just tell every artist in the world, and for every artist that's listening, just collaborate. If you yourself are an artist and your numbers are 10,000 monthly listeners, but you hook up with somebody that's 30,000 monthly listeners, do a song with them and you're benefiting from their streams. Your numbers will then go up into the 20s or 30s, and then look at somebody that's in the 50s or 70,000s and collaborate with them, and then so on. And over time, you're starting to build up a tremendous amount of plays and opportunities, and raising your profile where even majors really become interested at that point as well.
Yeah, that's really excellent advice, you guys. So, in case you missed it, he's saying collab with artists who have more of an audience that you might have, or vice versa, and to gather more traction and more steam. Do you ever suggest other artists in your system work together? Like, are you like, we got this kid, he's doing this, and you're doing this, and I think you guys should, do you get on the phone with both managers, or how does that work?
So we're definitely talking to managers a lot, but that aspect of what you just mentioned is something that I've always thought would be a really cool thing to do. We started to do that a little bit more so on the Latin side of things, but what's really interesting about being in Brazil and in Africa is those are genres that are really growing. And US-based artists are really interested in that sound as well. So we are really exploring ways of being able to say, hey, you're a US artist or a producer. Why don't you work with this artist in Africa or in Brazil? They've got certain numbers that you can then work with and leverage. And let's matchmake and create a master effectively and then release it and promote it. So that is starting to happen a little bit. It's not necessarily a formalized service, but certainly one that we're looking into.
What's been your biggest challenge to date?
Mm-hmm. So the challenge has just evolved differently over time. In the beginning, it was distributing music because there wasn't really a standard for doing so. That's not so much of a challenge nowadays. Some of the challenges today are the same ones that every artist has: marketing and getting your record seen. Because unfortunately, it's not that easy. There's just so many artists and so much music being put out. And the DSPs, while they try, don't really have, in my opinion, really well organized systems to be able to intake all of that information. And I say that not to knock on them because it is difficult to do that at such a high volume perspective in games. So I'd say marketing is and always will be a challenge for every artist, every company that's out there. But we're dealing in a time now where, in terms of emerging markets, copyright law is certainly different. So the more that music becomes accessible, the more that the internet becomes accessible, folks are creating music without really any thought or knowledge over how copyrights work. And that creates an issue from a legal standpoint where you're putting yourself in a liable position by illegally sampling or stealing music in some cases because you think it's okay and then distributing it. So those are challenges that we've had to invest some technology into, sort of like put screening measures and technologies against to prevent. But with the aspect of sampling becoming more popular, and there's just a lot of conflicting things that are occurring as the music industry is growing that fast.
Who is your greatest success story?
So, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, we have a lot of great moments. So it's difficult to really just pick one. But the most recent one that comes to mind right off the bat, there's a young gal by the name of La Maria. She's Dominican. She's recently been picked up by a major from a publishing perspective, but she's still with us in terms of like her independent catalog, kind of like I mentioned before. So her growth has been huge. There's been other ones that we've seen. We've been a part of the Ozuna and the Bad Bunnies of the world. So while we didn't necessarily directly contribute to that success story, being associated with that team and working with them early on and just seeing what they've done and how they've been able to work with where they're at now is incredibly awesome. And we're super proud of what that's become just because they exceeded everyone's expectations. And really, it's just such a rare thing to be that massive, but that's been great to see.
And what is the future of Symphonic besides the expansion? What are your plans? Where do you see it going? And what's on tap for the new, for 2022?
Sure. So we'll definitely keep getting to different partnerships, different styles of music partnerships. So we're very big on trying to put music and fitness related platforms, or trying to get into gaming more. Also really exploring the creator space. So working with folks on Twitch, working with folks on TikTok and saying, hey, there's a whole music world out here, or you have content that's being used, we can help protect and monetize on that. So really expanding the type of sort of client that we work with beyond just an artist, record label manager, or distributor. And really then being the technology provider for other brands that are interested in the distribution space. So recently we've launched 3 different sort of like co-branded partnerships. Quadio, which is a college creator partnership. Dallas Austin Distribution from the producer in Atlanta that's produced for TLC, Boyz II Men, Michael Jackson, and various others. And then recently Tully, which is Joyner Lucas's company as well. So we want to be that sort of like technology provider for companies that have user bases to be able to say, we can work with your user base and add the same level of quality and resources to that, to your client base that we've done directly as well. So those are some of the things that we're, and much more to come too, of course.
Yeah, and for those of you guys who don't know, Jorge and Symphonic are in like Billboard, like top, 100 music business guys on the rise and stuff like that. So this is real talk, and I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. How do people get in touch with Symphonic if they feel like they've got music, that makes sense?
Yeah, so, and I definitely see one question here on my screen that I want to answer. Yeah. If you want to check us out, symphonic.com. Through there, you can get access to our socials, but I'll also say that symblog.com, we post a ton of educational material on there every single day. We got a great newsletter where we're posting that. And certainly our Instagram here as well. Those are probably the 3 quickest ways of sort of getting familiarized with our business. And then certainly see a couple quick questions here. What advice?
I love daily. I see someone talking about daily. So Jared wants to know how does an independent artist get in, and how does he get his music heard?
Yeah, so the first step is always having good quality original music. And that doesn't just mean the music, but also the cover and all of that, because all that matters. The DSP wants to be able to promote material that looks good. So focus on doing that. And then, like I mentioned, if you're a brand new artist, I do recommend obviously the DIY platforms. If you started to reach some traction, listeners, I welcome everybody to apply, and we'll certainly take a look at it and see what you do.
Yeah. So what he's saying, you guys, is like if you're just starting out, try it yourself on DistroKid. And when you start, or I'm just using DistroKid as an example, once you start to see some numbers and you're like, okay, and now I need to get help and I can get my stuff out there, then you want to hit these guys up once you've already kind of seen traction on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see, DJ Aaron over here, 300,000 on TikTok and 1 million streams, and that a label may not look. This is the interesting part of where the music industry today is. You yourself have repertoire and catalog. Necessarily, you don't need to be going to a label. You can apply to a company like us because we're going to give you a lot of the same services that a label would. Split, pay, marketing, analytics, and things like that. So
perfect, man. Well, you guys, I want to thank you for your time, Jorge. I really appreciate it. And congratulations on all your success with Symphonic and the future. Hopefully you guys got some good advice. This will be on our YouTube and it'll be on our Spotify as well. And I think I'll send it to you. Maybe you guys can put it up somewhere. We can do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get you this. And you guys, Jorge, thank you so much. I'm going to take a couple booking questions at the end.
sure.
And, stay safe. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Likewise, man. Thank you very much for doing this, and you and your team stay safe out there as well. And I hope to see you in live venues very soon.
We will. Stay safe, and thank you, Jorge.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye.
All right. Okay, you guys, that was Jorge Brea of Symphonic. So, that guy just told you everything about distribution and distribution deals and a distribution label. Some of you don't know how it works. He just kind of explained it to you, and he's got a pretty solid company over there. So, again, what he said is do it yourself in the beginning. Go on DistroKid, upload your music. When you get traction, that's when you hit guys like that. Because they're going to look and they'll be like, oh, they all talk, all these distribution labels and it's all statistics, even the major labels, it's all analytics. So what he's saying is go try it yourself, get your music up in the cloud and get it out there. You guys can do that from sitting at home. So do that. And remember, great music will find its way. It just always will. So we're going to wrap up here. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining us. We'll be doing this again. August 27th will be Musa. Musa manages Currency, and Currency is the quintessential independent artist. So I'm going to have Musa, who manages Currency, on August 27th. And then on September 17th, I'm going to have Big A from Dog Pound, from the Dog Pound, Dog Pound Records. We're going to be talking about, Snoop and Warren G and Corrupt and Daz Dillinger and the old days and Death Row and all that. So that's September 17th. We'll be getting old school. I love Daly. Daly's one of my favorite artists. I met him. We did a few shows with Daly. He's awesome. And that one album, the first album, is magnificent, top to bottom. We have Rakim coming up, and if you guys want to book with us, again, for those of you just joined, everything's in the bio, okay? So go to the link in the bio. That's where you sign up for the newsletters that come out on Mondays. It tells you what we're booking, where we're booking it, and how to get down with us. It takes a minute, okay? Because we have a ton of people. We book stuff all over the country. Phoenix, Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Denver, San Diego. We're all over the place. Sign up, link in bio. And if you see something you like, our phones will be on next week. Probably Tuesday or Wednesday, you'll be able to actually call in. It'll be a little bit easier. And if you see a show that you like, you email us. In the subject, you put what the show is, what the city is, a link to your music, and then someone will respond. But like I said, guys, we're buried. So, just give us a minute. If you've already worked with us, you're good. Okay, I can't stress this enough. If you've already worked with us, you're solid. As long as you handle your business, you're going to be good with us. You'll call us. You'll get right through. If you're brand new, it's just going to take a minute. It's just what it is, okay? So stay on top of our newsletters. Stay on top of our merch, you guys. We're still selling shirts. Look at this, okay? You can't get this anywhere except for shpmarket.com, shpmarket.com. Look at that. Just look. County of LA, the whole deal, okay? Get this shirt. And here's another thing. Get this hat. Stay indie. This is the dope trucker hat. Stay indie. You can get it at shpmarket.com. Stay indie. Don't go corporate. If you want to rock with us on one of these guys, these are dope too. These snapbacks with the new logo. You guys, this is our 25th year in business. 25 years. So we've been doing it for a minute. We know what's going on. Can't thank you guys enough. Stay safe. Get your shots, guys. I'm telling you, these venues aren't going to let people in who aren't vaccinated. They're starting it now. It's going to continue, and it's going to be universal. So get the shot. There's nothing to be worried about. And go to a show and enjoy it safely. Peace out. We'll see you guys in August with Musa from Currency, September, Big A from Dog Pound. Love you guys. Thank you, Buster. Peace.